All right, guys, it's 8:02. We're going to start, and between Josh and Ant, if you can keep everybody just kind of muted, and I'll ask some questions. And so I know there's a lot of people that probably this is your first time. Just I don't know. I've had this idea in my head and decided why not do it. My wife said just do it. Maybe some people you can help add a little bit of value. And this is a process, right? So each week we go through a different topic. The first three actually all had to do with inviting. They are recorded. Ginger is going to put them up on a YouTube channel where you've got access if you want to go back and listen to them, if there's any value there for you. The goal is to be interactive. Sometimes it gets hard. I mean, we're getting up 80 plus people, but this is about you guys, right? And so the idea for the next class comes from questions that we typically get. So again, just to kind of recap, the first week we talked about inviting, but this is going from crawling to walking, hopefully to running. And so some of this is going to be elementary to some of you. Some of this, it might be brand new, but the idea is we all need to work on the core basics and really get better at the basic skills. Because then when things are released, like great new videos or new tools or systems, the core always stays the core. It's kind of like, and if Todd's listening, he'll probably get a kick out of this, right? But the coach that says, gentlemen, this is a football. Like, it's all about the basics. You can start to run the different plays, but if you don't have the core basics, that foundation, I personally believe you're going to struggle. And so we do little challenges. We do little things. I know last week, I think, gosh, Josh, I don't remember the challenge. Do you remember what it was? You're muted.
Yeah, I believe it was for people to go out and kind of get out of their comfort zone in public and really approach. I know we did a couple of them different around. I might be mixing up the last week's or the week prior, but it was about taking action.
Yeah. And so I know a lot of you were in Florida or you were on the Zoom, you guys, and kind of intentionally getting people to get used to talking and communicating with people. And again, this is about how you want to communicate. The last thing that in my opinion, that anybody needs to do, if you're used to texting people, then don't call them, because if they're used to you texting them, use text. If you're used to using Messenger, if you're used to calling. But in my personal opinion is all of us should never forget how to communicate with people, right? Like, I would never want to do everything through text or Messenger, because I think you lose stuff, because ultimately we need to talk to our teammates. One of the things I love about, Coach Rowland is he's on the road and he's in front of people. He's not just doing it from his house, although he probably could, but he understands the value of being in front of somebody, how much more impactful that is. So tonight, what I wanted to talk about is the presenting process. Okay. And so to me, there's different pieces of the process. Now, remember, whatever you're doing that's working, don't stop. But if you can take one nugget out of what we're going to talk about tonight and add it and maybe help you increase your odds of presenting and getting somebody to either see or start because you tweaked a little thing in your presentation. So here we go. We're going to go over it. One, for me, the most important thing is even before I do a presentation, whether it's a Zoom, in person, even if I'm sending somebody a video, you guys, the biggest part of that to me is in your own mind. I always expect everybody that I show this to say yes. It's now, do they all say yes? Absolutely not. But in my mind, I expect them to, because I believe that much. Does that make sense? By the way, for those of you that are new, I ask, and so I can see not all of you, but there's 5 pages, but I can see a lot of you. Whether you're doing thumbs up, whether you're shaking your head, because I want this to be interactive, right? Like, so if I'm going to a presentation, I never say, oh man, I hope they get started. I hope they sign up. I hope they buy something. Nope. I expect. If you're not in a place yet where you expect them to say yes, that would be like step one. You want to start there. So I always prepare myself in my mind to expect to win. Does that make sense? I want to expect to win, right? The Super Bowl team doesn't go out there and say, boy, I hope we win. They're all expecting to win. Well, guys, this to me is more important than a Super Bowl because this is about you and your family. This is about winning, not just for you, but for the people that we're going to share this with. Again, I'll go back to, because a lot happened this last weekend, but did you guys see all of those 100-pound transformations? Like, we couldn't even fit them all on the stage. Tammy's shaking her head. Like, Tammy, and you can unmute yourself a minute, Tammy. Aren't you so grateful that somebody opened up their mouth and shared this with you?
Yes, I am.
And how has it impacted your life?
Well, it's just totally changed it around. I mean, I eat better, I feel better, I can do more than I could before. I was just getting so miserable and that I couldn't do nothing, couldn't have a bad back. I still have issues bending over, but I can still do a little better than what I was.
So there's zero regret that somebody reached out to you and shared this with you, right?
Oh, none at all.
Okay. So you guys, right there, thank you, Tammy. Right there, for me, I'm always listening to that. Did you hear how she said, oh, none at all? If you can capture that and use that for the next presentation, the next reach out, the next invitation, right? I'm taking others' belief, and Tammy's still shaking her head, right? Because it's transformed her life. And what's going to happen is so many times we've got negative friends, we've got negative relatives that want to steal that from us, but you got to latch on to the energy. That's why getting together with people is so important, because you feel that energy, right? This is the next best thing. Okay. So step 1, prepare yourself to win. Step 2, posture, and this is all my posture over perfection. I don't believe in a perfect presentation, but I do believe improved posture will always help. So when I'm saying posture, I'm not saying sit up straight, put your shoulders back. Posturing yourself because of your belief, right? So I like to build on everything. So number 1, I know that they need what I've got to offer. I know that they do. I don't know anybody that's too healthy, and I don't know anybody that's making too much money. The richest person in the world will take one more dollar, and there's never been a person that's been too healthy. So that means everybody on the planet needs what we got to offer. So when we go into that with that belief, and then somebody like a Tammy, or many of you, how this is. I'm looking at Jeannie right there. I mean, it's changed her life. So you take that preparedness to win, and then you posture yourself, and don't let somebody look down on you. I can't tell you how many times over the years, somebody, when I start to present, they'll say, oh, you're in one of those, any of that stuff comes out of their mouth. I'm sitting up, shoulders back. I'm looking them in the eye and say, no, you don't understand. This is business. This is big business. This is bigger than any business that you've got to have that attitude. Does that make sense? That posture has to be, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not doing one of these things. I'm doing the right thing. And you guys, everything that I'm telling you, if you can come in, and it's an energy, right? Like, you've got to work on it. This is stuff that you practice. I didn't have posture when I got in. I mean, when I got started in this industry, I didn't have $5 to my name, but I had to teach myself that I believed in what I was doing so much. The banker that was looking at me, that he makes, a couple $100,000 a year, and my phone's blowing up with creditors. It wasn't that I didn't believe what I was doing. I just wasn't there long enough to make the money, but it didn't affect my posture. Does that make sense? I was postured enough where I could go to somebody like that, and I don't care how rich they are. Doesn't matter, because I believe so much. I'm postured. So posture over perfection. What is perfection? So many times, you guys, we compare ourselves. Listen, I don't care if you're a Brett Palmer, a Chris Doyle, Tim Sales, Richard Tuggle. I mean, it doesn't matter. They might be the best presenters in the world, but they also don't get everybody they present to. And we forget that, because what we do is we get in our own head, and it erodes our belief, which then starts to doubt the fact that we're going to win, that people need what we want, or want what we need, excuse me. And so then we start to lose, and we think we have to have the perfect presentation. And then what starts to happen is, Shirley, then we're like, well, maybe it's me. I'm not presenting good enough. And I'm suggesting to you, it's never that. And by the way, there is no perfection in presenting. You know the old saying, and I know it's cliche, but you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, the right thing to the wrong person. And that will always be true. But you can say, the right thing a better way. So if it's the right it might be the wrong person temporarily, but if they're on the fence, because there's some people that are on the fence, and if you're postured enough and you start to practice your presentation, you might get a little better delivery, in that those middle people on the fence, you can tip them to say yes instead of them tipping to say no. Oh, I don't do one of those things. Right away you say, well, I don't either. What are you referring to? Well, you know, those things. I don't know what those, like business, right? Don't let people get away with stuff because they're just giving you an answer because of their insecurities and their uncertainties. Does that make sense? Okay. The next thing is, and this is something that, again, this is a class. It's not a mastermind, because I want you to work on things. So here's one thing that I would suggest that all of you work on if you want to improve your skills, because this is a skill-based industry and anybody can get better. Ant, is Todd there where he can say something, or is he on the phone? Okay. When he gets off, I'd love him to say something, because I want him to remind everybody how much I was horrible the first couple of years in this industry and how afraid I was to talk to people. I mean, I was pitiful. It was horrible. I was afraid to speak like you can't even believe. I mean, I'm like, please, Todd, don't make me go up there kind of stuff. Okay. But you can learn the skills and over time get better. But those that are willing to practice are the ones that typically end up winning in anything, not just this business. The next thing is I call it match and mirror. What do I mean by that? If I sit down with somebody and they're really high energy, am I going to want to sit there and go, oh, hey, yeah, I've got this great thing. I mean, they're in there and they're excited. Raise up your energy to at least come close to somebody else's energy. But am I going to come in there? And I know some of you think I'm crazy because I'm like, ah, but you've never seen me in a presentation where if I've got somebody with low energy, I'm not going to be like, ah, in their face. I'm going to match their energy and I'm going to mirror them as much as I can. Because what that does is subconsciously start to break down their barriers and their walls, because you're matching them. Does that make sense? You know, it's interesting. I think it was Rick pointed out, and I used to do this when I lived down south and rodeoed. I pick up very quickly somebody's accent. Like really quickly, all of a sudden, and Aunt, maybe you remember, like I started talking like people in the South because I was down in the South. And literally when I rodeoed and I lived in Mississippi, I mean, I picked up all of that. Like people, when I come home, would think I was from the South. But interestingly enough, every time that I went back South, people that didn't know I was gone knew I was in Michigan because I started with talking with that accent. I believe that's a skill that you can start to learn. It's not a trick, it's a skill. If I've got somebody that is talking slower, I'm going to talk slower. If I got somebody that's talking faster, I'm going to talk faster. I'll give you another example. You ever had this where you walk in to maybe show somebody the opportunity, and whether it's a video, a flip chart, you're going to get them on a Zoom sitting with them, and they say, listen, you've got 5 minutes. Anybody ever had that? Raise your hand or put in a 1 if you've ever had anybody say, you've only got 5 minutes. Molly Reed, can you unmute yourself really quick? I think I saw Molly.
Yep. Hi, Aaron.
How are you? So Molly, can you do you remember that time when somebody said you've only got 5 minutes?
Yeah, I hear it every week.
Okay. So and remember, you guys, this is a safe space. This is not judging anybody, but and please don't tell me what you think you want me to hear. But like when somebody says you've only got 5 minutes, what's your response? How do you come back to that?
Well, early in my career, I got nervous and didn't really know what to say. Sometimes I still do. But generally speaking, I like to ask them what they'd like to talk about in that 5 minutes. What's the most important thing they'd like to talk about? Because if I find their pain point or their biggest problem or their biggest challenge, then I think getting them to talk about that leads into other things.
Molly, that is the gold right there. That was worth That's not my answer, but that is an answer better than my answer. And
Thank you.
that's why I love being interactive, you guys, because you're going to pick up one gold nugget, and that might be the only thing you pick up tonight, and it's definitely worth it. So I'll give you some of what I've done before, but I actually like your answer better. Okay.
I'd love to hear yours.
So mine is, and again, this is just from a more of a posture perspective, but again, I think I like yours better. So I think yours is easier to do than mine, to be honest with you. But if somebody says, well, you've got 5 minutes, I say, great, I only need 3. And I've developed the skill of talking very, very fast, and I'll talk so fast, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit some big highlights. And I will tell you, about 80 to 90% of the time, they'll say, no, wait a minute. And the next thing you know, you're into a full presentation, but now they're asking you to show them more. But Molly, your way to me actually is a better way, where if you've got 5 minutes, find out their pain point, because they're going to do the same thing and they're going to start to ask you more. So guys, you can do it either way. But in this case, I actually like Molly's way better. So thank you, Molly.
No problem. Thank you for yours.
So guys, again, this is why I love going through stuff like this. So match and mirror energy and tone, right? Like, just practice that. That is something this week. Again, it's just a skill, but practice it. Practice it with, you can practice it at your job. You can practice it, with somebody you're talking to in your family. If I was you, I would intentionally go out and find 3 or 4 people that you strike up a conversation. And here's what I always suggest. Start without trying to go share your business. Just practice that piece of the process, right? So Rob, if I'm sitting down with Rob and maybe we're on lunch break or whatever, I might just strike up a conversation tomorrow with Rob and just work on some of these skills without me ever having the intention of sharing with him New Age. Because what that does is that releases the pressure, and it allows me to experience and start to practice legitimately. Remember, everything needs to be real, transparent, and authentic. So if Rob and I are having a real, transparent, authentic conversation, but I'm starting to practice some of these skills, and I can then learn to see how he's reacting, right? And you guys, once you start to realize, wow, this is actually relatively simple to have a conversation, and then you do it 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 times, now all of a sudden you come at somebody that you're going to present to, you've already conditioned yourself to do that. Does that make sense? I'm off. There we go.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. All right. The next thing that I got you guys is body language. This one to me is a big one. So I don't know if any of you ever noticed, a lot of times when I'm talking, even if it's speaking on stage, I kneel a lot. And I do that because it's something I've conditioned myself, especially working with the Ranch for Kids. I always get down to their level. And to me, that's very, very important. And I'm going to kind of go through this phase of the presenting process. So if I'm sitting at a table and I'm sitting here with Jane, and Jane, you and I are going to talk. Now it's hard because you're on Zoom, but if Jane and I are eye to eye, or if I'm slightly higher in my chair, I will always slouch and maybe lean back a little bit, and I never fold or cross my arms. Here's what's interesting. Many times when you're sitting down with somebody and they're sitting there crossing their arms and they're sitting up, all that's saying is, I'm closed for business. I will not start a presentation with anybody that's sitting like this. All I'm going to do is start a conversation. But I will start that conversation where my arms are intentionally open, and I will lean back somewhat, and I will make sure I'm lower than their eye level, so they're looking down on me. And if you then start to be intentionally curious, and we talked about that in the inviting phase, if I'm intentionally curious and genuinely interested, watch how all of a sudden somebody's posture will go from like this, and they'll start to relax. And once they're relaxed and I've asked them enough questions, that's when I will start to present. Does that make sense? And you guys, these are just little things that nobody really ever works on, but make all of the difference, in my opinion, between somebody that's just out here doing it for a hobby and somebody that ends up being a professional. I will tell you, if you followed, in my opinion, anybody, most people, like the big leaders that you see that are on stage, the Dr. Crystals, the Vance, or the Brent Palmers, the Steve Schwartz, the Todd Rowlands, the Chris Doyles, they do all these things innately. Now, they might do things a little bit different, but they've got processes and flows, and they innately do things different with different people, but they've been doing it so long. And that's why we sit back and we're like, how do they get such great results? I mean, I'm sharing the same opportunity. You might even share the same presentation, the same video. And why does one person get a different result than the other? To me, it's a lot of these little things added up, and they just do it. It's second nature. And so what I like to do is break that down and go back and say, okay, what is it that they do? And how can we teach those skills so you and I can practice? Because if it works for one person, it will work for another. Does that make sense? So your body language is so important. That's another thing that you can practice this week. And again, you can practice it with anybody. I was asked and blessed to go speak to a group of 6th and 7th graders this morning. There was like, I don't know, 100 of them in a gymnasium. And I found myself, because they're all in chairs and I can't stand, I'm up here. So, and I like to interact with the crowd. But I mean, I'm down on their level, you guys, and it becomes a habit. But what happened, again, I've got all these 6th and 7th graders. It's like, who's this old dude talking to us, right? But by the time we were done, we were eye to eye and they were relatable. Now, to me, I just transitioned that into my business, and I don't have to be a different person. It just becomes a habit, and you'll see that it can impact people that you work with, your relationships. Even with your kids sometimes, right? Because when we're always about, and I don't have my own kids, but I do work with lots of kids. But if I'm always that authoritative posture, body language, they're going to have their guard up. Watch what happens when you get them and you, but you got to do it first, and they bring their guard down. Then we can actually communicate on a real level. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right. Does anybody in either in the comments or whatever, anybody have any questions or ideas about, posturing or body language at all? I'm looking. Okay. We're doing pretty good on time. Next, and guys, remember, all these things add up and stack on each top of each other. So what do you think, and you can type this in the chat, what would be the lack of confidence? What would the lack of confidence look like? So if I was coming and just type some ideas, and what would lack of confidence look like? Like, what does it physically or audibly look like? Looking away from them, absolutely good one. Lack of eye contact. I'll get back to feel, felt, found. Sheepish, withdrawn, soft voice, no eye contact, shoulders down, slouching, arms folded, fidgeting, back of stage. Yup. Restlessness. Okay. Stumbling over your words. Now I'm going to ask you this. How many of you, and you can do this or you don't have to, just by putting a 1 in, how many of you have ever went to a presentation and found yourself doing any of those things? And again, this is, okay. Me too, by the way. We all have off days, or some of us, nobody's ever taught us these skills, right? But what I like about this space that we're doing here on Wednesday nights is we're bringing this to the forefront of our mind. So awareness, you guys, is going to start to allow you to work on it. Right. And that whole list right there, and I don't know how we capture that stuff, but that's a really good list of what not to walk into a presentation doing. And we've all done it. I do it too. But if I know what not to do, and then I have a list of what I should be doing, wouldn't that help? Like if I had a little list of the things that I shouldn't probably go in there if I'm mad at if I just got in a fight with somebody, I shouldn't walk into a space without getting my mind right. Right. If I've had a really bad day and now I want to go try to force my business on somebody, I probably should get in a better space. If I'm getting ready to walk in there and I notice that my arms are down and I'm fidgeting on my cell phone during the presentation, guys, have you ever, and I've been guilty of this, have you ever either been at a presentation where they're watching a video or you're sitting down there watching a video and you or somebody that's presenting is sitting there on their phone like this while your guest is supposed to be watching? Anybody done that? I've done it. You guys, when we play the Dr. Crystal's video here at the ranch, a group of people last night, again, every guest in the room got started. But do you know, it doesn't matter what my teammates are doing, and they're all really good at this, but I'm watching, I'm shaking my head. I know her speech now as good as she knows it. But I see Mike, he's shaking his head right now. You know what happens, Mike? When you start shaking your head, guess what everybody else starts doing? Right now, I've got to like you guys all are like bobbleheads right now. I'm teasing, right? Like because everybody starts shaking your head, right? Well, guys, you can actually start to control the crowd. You ever notice when a room gets quiet and you're like, man, somebody needs to clap? Just one person claps, and what happens? You set the tone with clapping. You set the tone with your head nod. If you're paying attention, the other people, maybe you don't have a guest that night. But just because you don't have a guest doesn't mean that you've got a right to look on your phone and check emails and look over your Facebook, right? It's you and I focused. And what we're doing is that's conveying confidence that what's happening is important. The moment that I start to look away, the moment I start to play on my cell phone, what that's telling everybody that's brand new looking for the first time is, oh, it's really not that important. And again, all little things. Another thing is always, in my opinion, be real, authentic, and transparent. The one thing that I never want to do with anybody is say, be like me. Always be the best version of you. And remember, the best version of you is good enough because there's people that you can get through to that nobody else can. Meaning, so here's this list of stuff that can help you become a better presenter. But your out always is, just like in inviting somebody, your out is always this. You know what? If somebody says, if you're like, and you get kind of confused and you're like, I don't really know what to do with my body. I mean, I've been there before, right? And you're like, I feel really awkward right now. Just blurt out, you know what? I feel really awkward right now because I just want to make sure that you see this for what it is. And if it's somebody that you know, or even somebody that you don't know, Kathy, more times than not, they're going to say, that's okay. What do you want to show me? Because you are real, you are transparent, and you are authentic. And people can pick up on you're trying to be something you're not. That's going to drive them away more so than them not wanting to look at what you've got. People just pick up on that stuff. So never, I mean, your out is just be the best version of you. And if you're saying something or think you're doing something wrong, one, you're thinking too much. Two, you probably didn't practice that process enough. So it's uncomfortable. That's why I'll never understand why in our industry, we're the only sport, and I believe that this is kind of a game, right? It's business, but it's kind of a game, but we're the only ones that don't practice. See, if I'm going to be an accountant, how many years of school do I have to practice? If I'm going to be an attorney, Vince, are you there?
Yes, I am, Aaron.
So it's interesting, Vince. You're one of the top criminal defense attorneys in the state of Michigan. How many years of law school did you have to go to?
4 years undergrad, 3 years of law school.
And then when you got out, you just hung your shingle or shell or whatever that's hung your license and you went into practice, or did you have to work with somebody?
Had to work with someone. I started in the prosecutor's office, and then after that, I worked with a law firm because I had to, really generate myself with mentors.
Okay, and then what do they call that? It's called a law. What law?
Law practice.
You notice they don't call it law perfection.
No, right. You're practicing, and I feel
isn't that it?
Right.
You're charging clients and criminals tens of thousands of dollars, and you're still practicing, right?
I'm still practicing. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any doctors on here? If there's a doctor, and I mean this with respect, any doctors on here? It's a physician practice. Okay, why do they say that? Because the world understands that there's no perfect attorney and there's no perfect doctor. But yet we get into network marketing and we expect to be perfectionists in our first week. And if we're not, we want to quit because it's not working. You guys, give yourself a little bit of a break. Cut yourself a little bit of slack. If a doctor and a lawyer has to practice for 4, 8, 10 years, and then they still call graduating from that a practice, which is lifelong, maybe you and I should spend a little bit of time practicing for this profession that can literally make you more money and allow you to have more freedom than any doctor or lawyer. But yet we won't spend a few weeks, a few hours practicing some of the skills it takes us to become better at our profession. We want overnight success. We expect everybody to say yes. And if they don't, obviously it doesn't work. And then what we do is we start to compare people's success, but we never ask the successful, how long did it take? We should probably, maybe one of these days I'll have some guests on, some top earners, so you can hear from them how long it took them to get good. See, because we only, and there's nothing wrong with this, because nobody would ever show up to an event and say, yeah, so here's Billy Bob, and Billy Bob has been horrible at this for 10 years. Billy Bob, please teach us how you did that. Right? Like that would probably be not a very good event. What we do is this person's made millions and millions of dollars, which is true. But what I'd like to know, and maybe you would like to know, is how long did it take them before they even started to get good? And if you ever followed them around, they practice every single day, the process. That's why they're better. Vince is still practicing law, and Vince will be the first one to tell you that he would like to get out of law. Why? Because he only eats what he kills, meaning he can have a big case. He can make $1 million out of a case, which might sound like a lot of money. But when that case is done, if he doesn't do something else, that $1 million will run out. Right? And then the last thing that I have tonight, and then I'll answer any questions because we're done a little bit early, is you guys, once you practice the presenting process, the presentation, use the tools if you're not ready to present. A tool will duplicate much faster than you and I being a great presenter. I fell into that trap early on here. And again, I'm not just because he's on here, but I'm going to give Todd the credit because he recognized quickly that if we didn't have a tool that could duplicate, what I did is I'd get Dr. Ginger up there and she'd do an hour presentation. This is years ago. And I'd sit in the back of the room. Now, most of the people that showed up every week, they would be playing on their phone, and just because if they didn't have a guest. But I always listened. And so literally I got where if my wife said something different or missed something, I knew what she missed because I was there to learn. Right? Like one thing that I've conditioned myself to do is I'm going to listen when somebody else is presenting because I want to find out what they're saying and how they're saying it. And you'll pick up things quickly and you're like, oh my gosh, that's really good. I'm going to add that to my presentation. But if I get so good at that presentation and you're like, and Liz is like, Aaron, that's great, but I could never do that. One of two things is going to happen. Either one, that will actually keep her from getting started, or two, when she gets started, she thinks that she needs me to do every presentation for her to be successful. And neither one of those are good. The more that we can use a tool, and you've got lots of great tools and there's lots more coming. But the more that we can use a tool, and a tool can be a video, it can be a connect call, right? Use that. I want to use a connect call because I want, when I sit down with Juanita and I'm sharing her this wonderful opportunity, and she's like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, wait a minute, Juanita, hold on. Let me put you on the phone with my friend Josh. Subconsciously, she's like, you're not even answering that stuff, right? So when she says, well, Aaron, I think I want to do this, but I don't know if I could answer everybody's questions. All I got to do is go, well, Juanita, what did I do? Well, you got a hold of me. You said you needed to share something with me. We sat down, we watched a video, and then you put me on the phone, and this guy, Josh, answered your questions. Juanita, do you think you could do that with anybody? Now, I'm simplifying that, but guys, that's it, right? And now with the new 4x4, well, how do I get my money back? Anybody know? Right? Pretty simple. That came out of a mastermind with mastermind saying, hey, how do we make this simple? Now you've got the 4x4. Well, how do I make $1,000 a month? Anybody know? 4x4 times 3. $1,000 a month. You want to make $100,000 a year? Do it 2 more times. Guys, is that duplicatable? Can any of you go share that tonight? If somebody said, well, how do I get my money back in your business? How do I make $1,000 a month? How do I make $100,000 a year? Every one of you can go repeat that. 4x4, money back. Do it 2 more times, $1,000 a month. Do it 2 more times, $100,000 a year. Well, that seems too good to be true. No, it's not, because you have to go through the process. And you and I have to get better at the skills. If you want to go through big numbers, you'll always, again, because remember, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, but you can say it a better way to a person that's on the fence. And that's what this is all about. Helping you get that middle section of people that could go either way. And this helps tip more. That's why Todd Rowland, when he shows 10 people, 7 to 9 of them get started. Because everything that I went through here, he innately does that. There is not 1 ounce in that man's body that doesn't believe in this industry, this company, these products. Not 1 ounce. I don't care who you are. You can be, you know, the richest man in the world. And he's still postured. Does that make sense? All right. So does anybody have, and type it in there, does anybody have a question that has to pertain kind of to this? I don't want to get off track. I want to keep this on this.
Hey, Aaron, I got Todd here.
Hey, Todd.
Hey, Aaron. Hey, everybody.
So Todd, we're just kind of talking about the presenting process. Can you share with everybody how bad I sucked when the first couple of years here?
Aaron has never sucked.
Oh, come on.
No, we all do in the beginning, because we only have our own background that we start with. And, you know, Aaron had his background in the rodeo industry. I had my background in teaching, and we bring our traits that are really good for the business, but there's a lot of dynamics you figure out. And I've been able to hear about the last 5 minutes when he was talking about posturing, and the information is fairly easy to learn once you make a decision to learn it. I mean, you can drive down the road and listen to the videos online. I mean, if you just listen to Dr. Ginger's and Dr. Crystal Vance's repeat of last night's Zoom, you can learn the products in a couple of days. Just listen to them, just going in your head. But what you do have to do is learn how to sound like the expert when you're presenting. And that's what Aaron that maybe he's saying he wasn't good at in the beginning. He maybe second guessed himself. He maybe, as I did, as we all do, but once you flip that switch and you get enough product knowledge, you plug into enough of these Zooms, you hear things over and over and over, all of a sudden your belief level rises to the point where your posturing ability outweighs whoever you're talking to. It doesn't matter what they say, your belief is so strong they're not going to waver you. And that is the light switch that changes somebody from struggling at this to really becoming very, very successful at it. And then the last piece of the puzzle, I was just sharing, Anthony and I were just talking about this driving back from our Alabama meeting. And I said, Anthony, it's really not difficult what I try to get done every day to build a big business. I just want to get 5 exposures a day. And so I don't care if that's me picking up the phone, calling somebody, if it's somebody I've met on Facebook and I've met them through Messenger, or it's somebody on my team that says, as a matter of fact, I was on 2 different 3-way calls while this Zoom's been going on. One was a lady in South Alabama named Teresa. She had a person in Decatur, Alabama. And so it was just a brand new start. He didn't know anything. We just 3-wayed in. I had to tell him what kind of company we were, what kind of products we offer. And now when we just hung up, I'm sending the video over to him, and I told him tomorrow after he watches the video, we're going to talk again. So it doesn't matter how. The one we went to in Alabama was a set meeting. Somebody had told him. We had them sitting at a conference table. We presented with an iPad. We answered questions face to face. Anthony did a Zoom earlier while we were driving for somebody. So it doesn't matter how it occurs. We just want 5 people a day to see the business in your business. If you get that going on, at some point, numbers just take over, and you can't stop it. So that is always my goal as a full-time person, 5 a day. If I'm a part-time person, you say, I'm not going to be able to get 5 a day shown. As a part-time person, it's 5 a week. I want 5 brand new people to see the business in my presence sometime throughout the week. So Aaron, hopefully that helps some. You can ask more if you want it, but
Todd, because that's perfect. And you guys, and that's it. But let me just back to you, because I know back when you were coaching football, how much more did they practice versus game day?
Game day was just for fun. Practice is everything. I mean, everything was done before the game got there.
Okay. So wouldn't you agree that even those 5 exposures a day that you're doing, you're still always practicing, still always getting better, and it's effortless because you do it every day? Wouldn't that be fair to say?
Yeah, and I will say the number one thing I've learned. So the 3-way I was just on, I really got thrown into a difficult situation because the guy didn't know anything, and I didn't know him, and I really didn't know very much about him. So when I got connected, because I didn't really know where to go, the first thing I said, his name was Abraham. I said, Abraham, Teresa set it up. I said, Teresa has told me a little bit about you, but that's Abraham. I want to know all about you. I said, can you please fill me in, where you are in life, where you're at. So anyway, come to find out, this guy has 3 different degrees. He's from originally over on the Ivory Coast of Africa, although he lives in Decatur, Georgia now. I didn't know Decatur, Alabama now. I didn't know any of that when we started. So after he spoke to me for about 7 or 8 minutes, and I quizzed him on a couple little things he said, then I kind of knew the approach. Now I knew what I could say to him and what might pique his interest. So that's maybe the number one thing I learned, is how to get enough out of somebody to find out what I should say to them, because it always varies person to person.
Guys, that right there is money. And I mean, that's what we talked about kind of in the inviting stuff, but that's it. You notice, because when he got into an uncomfortable situation, meaning I don't really know what I'm doing, he dropped back to just being curious, right? Like, I'm just going to make it simple. He just was curious and asked enough. And once he learned enough, then he went into more of present mode. But then, Todd, what did you do? Because it was so important. Then you used what to make sure that you're taking yourself kind of out of the equation?
Yes. So at first I learned about him. That gave me my comfortability back, and it gave me time to get my composure and my thoughts together. Then we talked about it, but he didn't know anything. So instead of trying to over talk it, I gave him some highlights about the company, about the products, about being a home-based business, about creating residual income, about the ability to work it around the world. Just gave him the highlights, no real details. Hit the different things we do: weight loss, skincare, energy, reducing inflammation. Didn't go into any particular product, but I said, I've got a couple of videos that, if you don't mind, I'll send these videos to you the second we get off the phone call. And I said, if you got questions, I told Teresa, who set this up, I said, Teresa's going to put us in a 3-way text. If you got questions, you've got my number. You can call me directly. We can 3-way back together. And I said, why don't we just reconvene tomorrow at a time good for you, after you've watched everything and done your research, and then we'll get you started or answer your questions.
Guys, that's it. I mean, that training, that's one of the best. And seriously, I mean this. Todd is one of the best networkers in the world. And what did he do? He just gave a little bit of information, and he went back to tools. But also, he made sure that Teresa followed up immediately and set up a time to follow up tomorrow.
The 3-way text I have found really helped me see people follow up. So that's really something new I've implemented over the last not too long, is I started getting everybody that I was doing these for to put us in a 3-way text. That way I get to see what they say. And then I want them to know what I'm saying back too. That way it all kind of, I think it also sometimes makes the person we're talking to more comfortable too, because they kind of got the person they know, the person they perceive to be the expert, all in the same thread. And
that's money. That's absolute money. Todd, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
What a great gift that was to have you guys on tonight. You guys, I mean, that's perfect right there. You just learned from the best, but you put all that stuff together. And anybody can be a professional in this industry. but it didn't happen overnight. Todd Rowland didn't become world-class network marketer the first 60 days. He's been doing this for almost 2 decades, and he's got very proficient at it. You know, we got to stop thinking that it's just going to happen because we show up to an event and then all of a sudden we're going to do everything correctly. That's why I love and I encourage you to practice the process. Practice it even sometimes without presenting, because it takes the pressure off you. So, guys, if there's no other questions, we're about out of time. Again, thanks all of you for jumping on. I hope you get value. Hey, if you got value out of tonight, put a 1 in the chat and we'll do this again. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Anthony.